Hi, I'm Rand Westland with the next installment in our series, The Quest for Normalcy, the continuing saga of an economy trying to return to normal conditions. Normal is an elusive term. After a 2-decade-long above-average experience, which was abnormal, we endured the extreme stress of 2008 and 2009, also abnormal. Now we see more positive data points and continuing progress toward normalcy, but we're not there yet. Our first chart, used in our previous webcast, The Panic of 2008, is the Bloomberg Financial Conditions Index, a composite index which tracks the overall stress to assess the availability and cost of credit in the U.S. financial market. Constructed during 2008, using daily data going back to 1991, this measure calculates standard deviations to compare current conditions to average conditions over time. Thus, zero is neutral. This index plunged in the fall of 2008 as systemic distress turned a recessionary slowing in the availability of credit into a high-stress refusal to share monies across the system. Suddenly, many users of financial services, particularly those who use daily financing for operations and such, faced a stunning question. If you needed to pay for everything with cash, could you? When added to the growing stress of the housing market, credit conditions became extraordinarily negative. The chart now suggests that conditions have returned to neutral, but, as we will see, conditions have not yet returned to normal. The image we will use to examine conditions is the PushmiPullyu. Remember that curious llama-like creature from Dr. Dolittle? One wonders, with heads facing in opposite directions, how forward progress could even occur. When we use this creature to represent the banking system, you can envision the tension. On the left side, you have politicians in the popular mind. This head watched the Federal Reserve and Treasury flood the market with money and credit to support loans and other activity. On the right side, you have regulators, examiners, and auditors. This head watched the financial system take on significant leverage and risk and wants all participants, from national giants to community banks, to shore up balance sheets. Indeed, these contrary directives, which really represent moves toward or away from risk-taking, compel each head to try to run toward its objective and away from the other. To wit, the dilemma of the push-me-pull-you. Consider the views of the popular mind. Greedy financiers were given cash injections to support the economy, and now they're making no loans, ignoring pleas for refinancing, and hoarding money. As financial companies return to profitability, the calls for retribution grow louder. After all, if they are only going to use our money to enrich themselves, they must be punished. A 2009 Bloomberg poll indicates that a majority of Americans believe that not only should the big financial firms not have received government aid, there need to be massive reductions in pay to penalize the guilty. Two quotes were telling of public perception. Why would you want to give somebody a bonus who put us into this situation? And the fact that they're in existence should be bonus enough. At root, these comments reflect the angst produced by a complex financial system interacting across all segments of society and the search for someone to blame for all the duress. Now consider the views of the regulators. More scrutiny by examiners and auditors are required elements of regaining control. Convinced that it is their job to reel in a system that drifted from its moorings and to counter any criticism that they were too lax, they are living proof that hell hath no fury like a credit analyst scorned. In the hands of examiners and auditors, the fury seems to multiply. In their fervor, all financial companies must reduce risks by adding reserves, revaluing assets, and raising capital. They want the financial system to behave as if the conditions of fall 2008 are the new normal, meaning rely on your own money and not the money of others, and focus on consequences. Back in the pre-panic, everybody had access to anybody's money across the system. Money moved around to the points of perceived need. Now, higher capital requirements and the need to demonstrate that the money to support financial stability is in hand force financial companies to retain more liquidity, reducing the potential for risk-taking, which is actually making loans. Do you see the dilemma? Financial companies appear to be told to loan money and to not loan money. New loan activity means taking risks, but so does inactivity. The voices from each head of the push-me-pull-you call for penalties for doing something or not doing something. Who are the ones telling them to not loan money? The ones who can shut them down. What to do? Focus on troubled loans, necessary reserves and capital, and the triple-check review of any new loans to ensure quality. What happens then? Someone doesn't get credit they need or want. A restructured loan becomes a grudging debate over who bears the cost of non-payment, the lender or the borrower, and the left head cries foul in a louder voice. So there is a wider issue in this dilemma. The consumers of financing sit astride this beast, hanging on for dear life as the two sides wrestle. What happens if a line of credit is curtailed or becomes more costly? What are the options? An interesting Wall Street Journal article focused on the haves and the have-nots. By definition, the haves were those with access to credit, and the have-nots were those without that access. Of course, that's not a traditional way to define these two groups. But in an economy that has moved toward broad access to credit as the norm, this contrast illustrates current conditions. It's almost like that old chestnut, bankers will only loan you money if you can prove you don't need it, has come to life. If a borrower is financially well, this will work, but it doesn't work universally for the economy. A recent Ned Davis analysis pointed out that using the change in the amount of loans outstanding is misleading when used to determine if banks are lending. The biggest issue facing the financial system is how much of previous earnings must be written down or charged off, and when does it stop? The lion's share of the earnings decline that struck investment markets came within the financial system. The majority of recent declines in loan outstanding is due to charge-offs, plus businesses paying down debt. Unfortunately, though bank loan volume is showing signs of life, a soundbite reporting system tends to reflect headline numbers, and the dilemma gets lost in translation. If we step outside the financial system, there is a sense that everybody else is beginning to improve. A growing amount of financing is raised in the bond market by larger companies that were shut out for a year or longer because nobody would buy a non-government bond. There is a feeling that banks won't lend, but that is too simplistic. Banks want somebody to want their product, which is loans. Until they do not have to quadruplicate all the new documentation, stabilize their capital base, and show that they can maintain what is perceived to be the necessary buffer against future losses, they will struggle to be in the business of providing money to the economy. Nonetheless, as charge-offs recede and non-paying borrowers start paying again, the companies will quit adding to reserves, expand their presence in the marketplace, and regain some normalcy. 23 years ago, Ronald Reagan said, "Trust but verify." Our economy rests on the basic principle that people make self-interested decisions, propelled by personal motives and expectations. A return to normalcy includes personal responsibility. Trusting that others will be true to their word, but verifying that assumptions, expectations, and motives, ours and theirs, are reasonable. There are many more issues our PushmiPullyu could carry. What is a fair level of compensation in the financial system for handling billions of dollars? What is the risk of chasing away the talent needed to handle those billions? Who pays the costs of fixing the excesses? Is it fair to charge the financial system for the euphoria of all? How do we get this PushmiPullyu to move in the direction, economic expansion, that is most beneficial to all? Alas, these are questions for another time. Thanks for listening in, and have a great day.